This is a reality show, and on this particular episode, we are discussing the passing away of, I think, about three people that I wanted to talk about in this video. Recently, or yesterday particularly, there was an announcement that AKA, who is a popular hip hop artist in South Africa, the guy who did 10 Fingers to the Bible song, had passed away. He had been shot by two unknown gunmen. There was even pictures, I think, early this morning of a CCTV, or what the CCTV saw, two gentlemen standing right at the corner out of the thingy, and they fired shots into him and his bodyguard. And then, secondly, I don't know if you guys saw this story, but the ACDP's leader, who is, I think, is a pastor, I do know that it's a Christian organization, his wife passed away earlier on. And that was also another subject that was had. I saw it at first on Solomon's page, but I think Solomon had only posted the wife, and I was just like, I think I know her, and I was not sure because I couldn't remember that it was thingy. It was only later when I realized that that was actually the ACDP leader's wife who had passed on. And then there was a story that I wanted to do, I think, about last week, of a pastor who last year, January, he posted that, you know what, anybody that owes him, they should just go ahead and pay him, and they should just do the needful. And then, you know, we can have the conversation after. But y'all pay me back what you owe me and all that kind of stuff. You know, he had made it like a thing. But then he ended it off by saying, you know what, I might not be here by the time when you want to pay me, so do it now. And then earlier on, a few weeks back, then he started saying, you know what, I might not have that much time here. And he actually ended up passing on. I hope I do show you the picture of this particular stories as I'm talking about them. And so I wanted to talk about all these three. They're all different. But first of all, you have one who died without knowing. Young, healthy, everything was fine with him, but he dies at the hail of bullets because someone had ordered a hit. It wasn't a robbery gone wrong. No, they didn't rob. They just waited for him to come out and think. Number two is one who dies of natural causes and one who dies of illness, almost in a tone as if he predicted his passing. These are three. One who almost predicts, one who dies of natural causes, and then one who dies at the hand of man. Now, one area of why I wanted to talk about this is to show whether rich, poor, informed or uninformed, we all go to the same place. That's the grave. You know, yes, there is where we go after the grave within the Christian community's conversation, but we all go to the same place, which is the grave. We all know that. We all know that we are going there. We all know we are going to the grave. And so early on, I was thinking about what do I want to say about this video and whatnot, and I was kind of thinking about AKA's story by itself, but then I then remembered these other two episodes, these other stories that I had not talked about, but they were kind of like within the same subject. We all know we're going to the grave, but we don't know how or when, right? Whether informed or uninformed, we don't know how and when. But we know, we are sure that we are going there. But then there are things like success. There are things like business, investment, things that we don't know. Things like next year, next week, which is why the Bible says, you know, a person who speaks of tomorrow as if he knows what's going to happen speaks almost in ignorance, because you'd rather say God willing, because you don't know what thing is. So we don't know what tomorrow guarantees. We don't know whether we'll be successful. We don't know if we'll be poor. We don't know if we're going to go broke. We don't have all this information. But the one thing that we all know, all of us, the one thing we are sure about is that we all face the grave. That information we all have in abundance. That information we have without doubt. But the way we prepare for all these other things we don't know, but we don't have any preparation towards the one that we know, it quite says a lot, and yes, which is where we constantly talk about things like, people giving death prophecies and stuff like that and all that. It's that there's this perception around whether we should know about when we're going to die or if we're going to die. But we know for sure we're going to die. When it's not the important thing, we know we are going to. That's the thing we have sure of. Whether it is timed or untimed, as you might put it, we are sure of this. We all face the grave. But the one thing we are sure about, we have nothing planned towards it. Which is where the Christian faith prepares people about. It says we can know. The Christian faith comes at that with we can know what our preparation is for that. And there might be a lot of discussion within the Christian faith that people don't agree with, but this is the one thing we all know that the Christian faith focuses on, is the afterlife, is the 1,000-year millennia that we spend with the Messiah. We might spend 100 years down here, we might spend 50 years down here, 30 years, it doesn't matter. The Messiah, he who was God in the flesh, came here and he lived 33 years. If I live 25 years, if I live 30 years, if I live even 20 years, I'm grateful. But the one thing that I ought to have in mind is that preparation for what comes after. And we all have the choice of making a decision towards that. Now, the ACDP leader's wife was Christian. The pastor I'm talking about was a Christian. I don't know if AK was a Christian. I don't know that information, right? But the one thing that I would ask you, yes, we can say rest in peace. We can say may the family be comforted in this particular subject. But we who are alive, what do we get from this? One was prepared. He was ill in the body. He wasn't well. And then after a year of him not being well, it started to show that he wasn't going to make it past thingy. And he started speaking in that tone. And he went. He was the pastor. He was prepared for the journey. The ACDP leader's wife, natural causes, not well, and then they go. Prepared for the journey ahead. AKA, like I said, I don't know if he was a believer of any congregation or anything like that, I remember when I was thinking, there was one song that I used to think of. When I think of AKA, there was one song that I used to think of. It's that 10 Fingers to the Bible song. And so the one thing we know, we have no preparation for. But the things that we don't know, we have all plans for it. We even get other people involved in our plans. We even hire life coaches in order to help us with our goals towards those things that we have no surety about. We go through counseling to overcome traumas that might have hindered us in our perception of ourselves so that we can look forward towards these things. So we plan, focus, think about. But the one thing we are sure of, we have no plan for. I thought that was just an interesting thought. It has no finality to it. I think it is you who decides what the finality of that closing is. And you can tell us down in the comment section. What is your decision with all these things? Whether planned, whether foreseen, like in the pastor's position, natural causes in the ACDP leader's wife, or unforeseen events, like in AKA's situation. Either one of this, there's one thing to take from them. Whether planned, unplanned, whether you're in health or what, death comes to all of us. We all know that for sure. But it's the one thing we are least prepared for. And by prepared for, I mean, what is your understanding of what happens to you after you cross?